economics, education, entertainment, labor, law, politics, religion, sex, and war. If you do not understand racism, which is white supremacy, what it is and how it works, everything else that you understand will only confuse you. Confuse you. Confuse you. Confuse you. Confuse you. If you do not understand, confuse you. If you do not understand, confuse you. If you do not understand, confuse you. Confuse you.
My definition of white supremacy and racism, I use those two terms as synonyms. I use the same definition for both terms. That definition is as follows: a global system of people who classify themselves as white and are dedicated to abusing and or subjugating everyone in the known universe whom they classify as not white.
Economics, education, entertainment, labor, law, politics, religion, sex, and war.
Eugenics is the science of breeding a better race, essentially, to produce so-called better people. So it was very widespread in Europe and in Australia and in the New World before the Nazis were even thought of. Eugenics was started in England in the 19th century. It was about modern science and about modern populations. So Australia was a new country and the population was increasing rapidly through migration. Society was changing in quite a radical way. And secondly, it was a new modern society. There were big cities, there were slums, there were industrial areas. Because it was the new gold city, because of its great wealth, up to perhaps the Second World War, Melbourne was the premier city in Australia. So not only did you have the sort of centre of the Australian government in Melbourne, you also had an important early university. There were lots of engineers, there were lots of town planners, lots of doctors came out to Melbourne, all the sort of people who became active members of the Eugenics Society. So it was incredibly popular amongst the intelligentsia, it was popular amongst the left. People like Alfred Deakin were active in the Eugenics Societies. But perhaps the most important person, because he was the driving force behind eugenics, was Richard Berry, who was Professor of Anatomy. All his research was on eugenics, all of it, and it was on head size and mental deficiency. And mental deficiency was one of those social constructs, which we would call now, which included people like prostitutes, homosexuals, slum dwellers, Aboriginal, alcoholics, anyone who was seen to be inefficient. They were improvers essentially, but they were also driven by fear of this growing urban population. Race was very important. So it was not only excluding miscegenation or mixed race marriages, they also didn't want inferior whites. So there were tests conducted on immigrants. There were complaints about the quality of immigrants coming. They were considered to be eugenically poor quality, many of them. After the Second World War, there was the Declaration of Rights by the United Nations. That specifically says race should be a socially constructed matter, not a biologically constructed matter. And that was in response to the horrors of Nazi Germany. But there were many who felt that eugenics had got a bad name and should be continued. And there are still people today who are interested in eugenics. And you really only have to go to genetic testing to find the whole debate again. We're still constructing ways of deciding who are worthwhile humans and who aren't, medically, who are worth saving, who should be allowed to breed, who shouldn't. The debate really hasn't gone away.
Notice, if you will, the half-caste child, and there are ever-increasing numbers of them. Now, what is to happen to them? Are we to allow the creation of an unwanted third race? Should the coloureds be encouraged to go back to the black? Or should they be advanced to white status and be absorbed in the white population? Now, time and again, I am asked by some white man, if I marry this colored person, will our children be black? And as Chief Protector of Aborigines, it is my responsibility to accept or reject those marriages. Here is the answer. 3 generations. Half-blood grandmother, quadroon daughter, octoroon grandson. Now, as you can see, in the 3rd generation, or 3rd cross, no trace of native origin is apparent. The continuing infiltration of white blood finally stamps out the black color. The Aboriginal has simply been bred out. Now, we come to the Moore River Native Settlement. Ladies, most of you are familiar with our work here, the training of domestic servants and farm laborers. I would like to thank you for your continuing support. Hundreds of half-caste children have been gathered up and brought here to be given the benefit of everything our culture has to offer. For if we are to fit and train such children for the future, they cannot be left as they are. And in spite of himself, the native must be helped.
First of all, Australia itself is the world's 2nd smallest continent, second only after Antarctica. It's the smallest inhabited continent. The name Australia means Great South Land. And the first people of Australia were the people we call Aboriginal Australians, commonly called blackfellas. And of course, you have different names: the Koori, the Goori, the Noongar, and various names.
The people of Australia, originally Australia was an African land. In fact, in European documentation, they considered it an African satellite. When the British came into Australia and began the mass extermination of African people, they were crystal clear who they were exterminating because they said it. And also we know that right off the coast of Australia was an island called Tasmania, a little island off the coast of Tasmania. There are no living Tasmanians in existence right now. You can't find a Tasmanian man, woman, or child because the British systematically exterminated the entire population.
It wasn't until January 1967 that Aboriginal people in Australia were considered humans for the first time. In January 1967, there was a national referendum to decide Aboriginal Australians should have Australian citizenship. Up to that point, they were officially, and you can document this, classified as flora and fauna and plants and animals.
In Australia, they would literally breed out the melanin of the people. You know, they would take the children and take them to breeding camps and breeding farms and breed the darker ones and the mulatto ones with white, and they would literally breed the melanin out of these people. The movie Rabbit Proof Fence is about that breeding process, them breeding out the melanin of the Aboriginal people. So it was very deep what was going on over there.
Tonight on Insight, Aboriginal or not?
Who gets to determine who is Aboriginal?
What happened when you applied to have your Aboriginality confirmed?
I was denied. Like getting spat in the face. There needs to be a better system in place. You just have to look at me until I'm Aboriginal.
I'm an Aboriginal Australian.
You totally look like a white fella to me.
We shouldn't be judging each other by colour.
Yes, indeed, says the woman who classifies herself as white. We shouldn't be judging each other by color. And you are now listening to P.A.R. People Activity Radio, and I'm your host, John G. Horse. Welcome. You have found your family in a peaceful place. P.A.R. aims to be a family-friendly information distribution program seeking to inform non-white people, in particular black classifieds, and assisting in counter-racist codification. The title of the day's show is Racial Classification Confusion and the Australian Aboriginal Illusion. I played 3 clips, which is going to assist me in trying to alleviate confusion as it pertains to Australian recognition, Aboriginal recognition. Indigenous, Native, Aboriginal classification. The first clip focused on the eugenics program that was practiced on the Aboriginal people of Australia. This eugenics program consisted of a military faction, which basic orders was to shoot Aboriginal males on sight. It also mandated that those females that you did capture by way of killing probably the males in their village or settlement or wherever they were, we are going to kill as many as we can, and those that we want to use for services, free labor, slavery, whatever you want to call it, because they were enslaved upon being dominated. We're also going to practice a breeding out of melanin systematically. I mean, this is systematic genocide. The British Empire. Now, we have to understand that the British Empire also came to the Americas, and they also practiced the breed out and the genocidal tactics. But we get confused because there's a lot of racial classification confusion wherever the European had arrived. So just like in Australia, you have people that have no physical attributes of a melanin-dominant, dark brown, black fellow, black classified Aboriginal, but they are receiving resources and assistance based upon Aboriginal classification. Now, that was the second clip. Because the second clip dealt with the group of Aboriginals that are called the Lost Children of Australia, the Lost Tribe. I forget. My mind always goes blank when I'm getting into my talk. But the Lost Children, the Lost Generation. Goodness gracious. The Lost Generations. Now that is a term used to describe mixed offspring of raping and pillaging, meaning there will be a lot of single black women or single Aboriginal women, because most males were killed on sight or in jail, locked up, the whole thing, same old thing that's happening over in the United States of America. But they would have to work as domestics. They would have to work, around white men, and white men took their liberties with these women who, for all intents and purposes, were not even recognized as human beings up into the late 60s, early 70s. And if you understand, when you don't even have human recognition, there can be no crimes committed against you. So raping and kidnapping and all the atrocities done to a dominated people was put upon these Aboriginal women, and there were a lot of mixed offspring from these rapings. You understand that? Now, these mixed offspring were called half-castes. This is a British Australian term, half-caste. Here in the United States, we would call these half-castes, mixed people, or mulattoes, or whatever. All these terms are made up. People just make them up as they go along. Sometimes they keep the same terms and use them on the other colonies. But in this particular case, the British Australian Dominant Society, who classify themselves as white, called products of miscegenation or mixed race relationships, or just the rapings, half-castes. And the most valuable of the half-castes under the system of racism, white supremacy, and the racial classification codification in British Australia was the female half-caste. Now, it was extremely important for them to control the sexual choices of the female half-caste, because along with the military faction killing as many dark black fellows as possible who did not want to submit and align themselves with the white supremacist faction of Britain. So they were, having some type of conflict or war, but it was just a one-sided war because the military capabilities were not up to the level as the British explorers, the British colonialists. Basically a slaughter. The female half-caste, once the government found out that, you were an Aboriginal woman and you had a child that may have been fathered by a white male sitting around your little reservation, sitting around your little village, the white supremacists in Britain found value in the female half-caste because on the second clip that was played in the introductory, they decided not only are we going to kill off as many black fellows as we can see, the ones that we don't kill off in these half-caste offspring, we are going to then extract the half-caste from the black parent, and we're going to put them in camps and or assign them to white families. And upon putting them in camps and assigning them to white families, what we're going to do is condition them to be more connected to our culture. We don't want them dealing with black people. We're calling them something different. They're colored. And if we can control the reproduction of these colors, this will assist us in wiping out the black population. And we're going to call this eugenics. You understand me? You understand me? Cold-blooded, man. If I could sing like Rick James, cold-blooded. If y'all, I'm dating myself. That was one of my cuts. Cold-blooded. Rick James. But under that context, not only are you killing off the people, you're starving out the people, you're taking the resources from the people, you just dominate the people. Those survivors that may be just struggling on to any type of way of life, you taking their children from them and then teaching their children that the way to go is to breed yourself out by having sexual relations and or marrying white people. So then in 3 generations, as the clip said, you will completely have bred out the melanin from those half-caste children. And that clip, which was a very powerful clip, I extracted from a film called Rabbit Proof Fence. If this topic interests you, I would suggest that you, as soon as possible, watch that film because it gives it to you straight, no chaser, unadulterated truth about what racism, white supremacy is, what it is and how it worked, and in particular what it is and how it worked in British Australia as it pertains to the relationship between the people who classified themselves as white and the people who they classified as not white, in particular black. And I keep going to this term black, even though the people are copper-colored, dark brown people. From to the naked eye would look black, but if you look at them in the sun, they are dark brown. But if you look at these people, you cannot mistake them for being anything else other than what they are: Indigenous, autochthonous, Aboriginal people of Australia. They have a look, and it is unmistakable. You know an Indigenous Australian when you see one. But the final clip that I played was about a show, which disturbed me. And I seen this show maybe 4 years ago, and the show is called Insight, and it's an Australian talk show, similar to something that Oprah Winfrey, Montel Williams, those type of talk shows. And the host usually is a white woman, but in this case, the title of the show was called Aboriginal or Not. And there were 3 guests on the panel. One guest was identifiably melanin dominant, black classified, clearly appeared to be Aboriginal. The other 2 guests was, from in my opinion, was a white woman and a white man, and they happened to be brother and sister. And they also said that they identify as being Aboriginal. Now I'm gonna say it one more time for you. I saw a white woman and a white man on the show who were brother and sister, and they were classified as Aboriginal. And the show's title was Aboriginal or Not, and the show started off as asking the black classified male, the copper colored, the brown man, the man who will be classified as black, who is clearly Aboriginal, what problems did you have when you went to receive your Aboriginal classification? And this man said, they denied me. They told me that I was not Aboriginal. I was confused. Because the white man and the white woman on the panel were classified as Aboriginal. What type of mess? You understand what I'm saying? What type of mess is that? So, just like in these United States, what I immediately realized when I was watching this show is this is a worldwide practice. Racial classification confusion. You come to America and you see white people, or people that may have attributes as if they are Eskimo or some type of Asian. They throw their hair in a ponytail, and they be walking around talking about their Native American. Wait a minute. Whenever the Europeans arrived, and in particular some of the British Europeans, the same British who arrived in doggone Australia, when they arrived in these United States, they clearly described people who were identical or similar to the Indians of India. But at the time when they arrived in the United States, India didn't exist. Are you following what I'm saying? So what did Indian mean in 1492? Indian was a term used to describe dark color. Indigo. Don't take my word for it, do your research. The people were described as being black, dark complected groups of natives. Who are these people that are part of the 5 civilized tribes? Cherokee Nation, Choctaw Nation, Seminole Nation, Chickasaw Nation, I forget the 5th. They are not dark people. You understand that? You will not mistake them for being Negroes or black classified. You understand that? Back to Australia, I'm getting on a tangent and I'm getting off subject. I digress. So on this show, you have a bunch of people talking about, you can't tell us who's Aboriginal and who's not. My great-grandmama was a quadroon who you could barely recognize as being someone who was Aboriginal, since she had Aboriginal classification, so I have Aboriginal classification. And they're sitting up here, and immediately I thought about the woman who said that I am transracial, Rachel Dolezal. And I started to think, Rachel Dolezal is taking a lot of punishment for saying that she is transracial and she identifies as being a black woman. But how many people in the history of the United States have superimposed themselves onto black classification? She's not the first one. How many people have been posing as if they were black, they were actually white, and they just say, you know what, I'm going to benefit from being black. whatever that means. And they just superimpose themselves on the black classification. And in black people, I'm telling you right now, we accept anybody who claims that they black. You be looking at them. Because we are victims and we are subject to racism and white supremacy. And we have inferiority complex. Our self-esteem is low, not because it's just inherently natural to us. We are pummeled with anti-black propaganda from the rooter to the tutor, from the cradle to the grave, worldwide. So the same thing that's happening here in the United States, it's the same thing that's happening in the Philippine Islands, it's the same thing that's happening in Australia, it's the same thing that's happening in South Africa, it's the same thing that's happening in Southeast Asia, it's the same thing that's happening in Europe, it's the same thing that's happening in the Pacific, where ever you go. The white supremacists are there dominating. And when they dominating, there's a whole bunch of racial classification confusion popping. I hope I have contributed to less confusion. And right now I'm going to let Neely Fuller take us on home.
No, these are 6 things that they do for confusion. As far as I know, it's 6. And major things. They might do a number of small things, that I haven't recognized to cause confusion. But it's 6 basic things. Now, this is not in the textbook. I've been talking about it for years, and I intend to put it in an updated, expanded version of the textbook. But it's racial classification confusion. Now, you got a little bit more of that going on now with some recent incident of a white lady saying that she was black. That's racial classification confusion.
Okay.
All right. Second, racial dislocation confusion. Now, they have had this all the time, meaning keep those squatters moving. In other words, if people are non-white, keep them moving. Why? They have found out from experiments, from experience, that if you keep people moving all the time, everything from people going across the desert trying to find a way to get some food, some clothing, some shelter, some jobs, or people trying to cross an ocean and their babies falling into the water and whatnot, turning over. That's dislocated people. They are not stable. They're trying to find a place where they can go, where no one is trying to harm them.
Right. Okay.
Right. Also, dislocation means you have your things sitting out on the sidewalk.
Okay.
All right. Now, you might have done that about 3 years before then. See, the white supremacists, when it comes to black people, keep those black people moving.
Keep them moving. What's the third thing?
The third thing is racial population tailoring confusion. In other words, don't let the population in any particular place get too big. It becomes difficult to handle.
So you tailor it, huh?
Yeah, so you tailor that population. You have all kinds of ways. You spread disease.
Okay.
All right? That's one way of getting rid of some people.
Yeah, like Ebola or
something like that. Right.
Yeah.
Or you just hand out guns to 50% of the population, and you don't give the other 50% any guns.
Okay.
Or you give them all guns and let them go at each other. So you make sure that you tailor their minds so that they are mad at each other. They are gangsters and all like that. I want to be a gangster.
Right.
Okay, now when you get to be a gangster and get your credentials, who are you going to gangster against?
Yeah, street
well,
cred.
the black people. That's all I ever see you do.
Yeah.
All right. So, big deal. That's all a part of the racist scheme.
Number 4?
Okay? Number 4 is racial sexual confusion.
Wow.
So now you got trans this and trans that and trans that. Then you mix that transgender confusion with trans racial confusion. Now you got the package that you was aiming for in the beginning.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They started off with transgender, but I've been telling people for years, oh yeah, that looks like that's mundane. That's, we all have people who are, what you call bisexual or trisexual. Even among black people, we all got them in our family if we're not those ourselves, okay? So we say, well, that's no big deal, but you got to think about what the racists intend to do with that. So they mix the transgender with the transracial.
Wow.
See, now they got maximum confusion, which is what they want.
Right.
Okay? Now, you go to Number 5, racial showcasing confusion.
What's that?
That's putting a few black people, all black faces that used to be to the back. We want them down front now. Okay? Put black faces down front on a whole bunch of stuff that the white supremacists are going to be doing in the back. But you have a black face up front. Now that makes black people get mad at the black people who are up front.
Right.
But it's the white supremacists who are back behind
who
the curtain.
orchestrating the whole thing, yeah.
Yes.
Puppet master.
So that causes confusion, and it also causes black people to start attacking each other, and the racists are back behind the wall, just cracking their sides laughing. Say, we got them again. I mean, these people are the dumbest creatures you'll ever see because they can't catch on to nothing. All right?
Okay,
then you
6.
go to number 6, racial white sacrifice confusion.
White sacrifice?
Yes. Meaning, when you drive down the street and you look out your car window, you see some white people on park benches. You see some white people who are out there barefooted in the wintertime. And you see some white people walking around talking to themselves and whatnot and don't have anything. I mean, and you say, oh, racism is over because look, you got white people who are poor. You got white people that don't have anything. You got white people who are suffering, just like black people. So it's not racism. It must be something else. No, the white supremacists operate on a percentage basis. They know that, and they even put in position in the path of danger a certain segment of white people. They'll just pick out white people, so to speak, and just throw them under the bus. This is to distract non-white people to thinking that racism doesn't exist.
Yes.
But they do it on a percentage basis. See, for every 10,000 black people that they kill, they'll kill 10 white people. And say, see, it's not about race. I mean, people just out here killing people. That's all it is. See, but it's always the black people who are the greatest number of people suffering. Okay. That's the way they operate.
That's the way they operate. Neely Fuller Jr., straight no chaser, bars. And remember, keep learning and stay codified.
Economics, education, entertainment, labor, law, politics, religion, sex, and war. If you do not understand racism, which is white supremacy, what it is and how it works, everything else that you understand will only confuse you. Confuse you. Confuse you. Confuse you. Confuse you. If you do not understand, confuse you. If you do not understand, confuse you. If you do not understand, confuse you. Confuse you.
My definition of white supremacy and racism, I use those two terms as synonyms. I use the same definition for both terms. That definition is as follows: a global system of people who classify themselves as white and are dedicated to abusing and or subjugating everyone in the known universe whom they classify as not white.
Economics, education, entertainment, labor, law, politics, religion, sex, and war.